animatronic head for 2022's Prey packed in 27 tiny motors, which, coupled with CGI, helped create the most lifelike and terrifying predator yet. It's tiny details like this that bring horror movie nightmares to life. From building 13-pound creature heads like this one, to sculpting paper-thin prosthetics, here's what 8 scary movies looked like behind the scenes.
Action!
In Hellraiser, Pinhead's eerie final look involved a face piece, a headpiece that covered the skull cap, and a zip-up silicone neck that was like a choker collar, transitioning onto the body. To make her and the rest of the cenobites appear as naked bodies, with pins poking and pulling their flesh in disturbing ways, special effects makeup head Josh Russell made all the costumes and makeups out of silicone, rather than the traditional foam latex. It created the illusion of translucency, like you'd see in actual flesh. Pinhead wore a 2-piece undersuit that resembled muscle tissue, moving independently from the top skin, complete with glued-on hand appliances, and a flesh suit slipped over it all to complete the look. Mia Goth plays both villain and hero in X, with one character decades older than the other. Director Ty West wanted to push the character design of Pearl and her husband Howard into monster territory, hinting at their sinister nature. That task fell on Weta Workshop in New Zealand, where prosthetics designer Jason Docherty was tasked with aging up both Mia Goth and Stephen Ure. His team brought out little nuances like skin discoloration and contact lens coloring to emphasize Pearl and Howard's decrepitude as seen through the younger character's eyes. And to make sure Mia Goth's performance could come through, the team had to make some prostheses so precise they were tissue thin and practically see-through. For some scenes, Mia required some 30 individual prostheses, painstakingly applied by makeup designer Sarah Rubano and her team. Nope introduces us to a murderous extraterrestrial monster. And yet, the scene that many described as the film's scariest was centered on a chimp. One performed in motion capture by Terry Notary, the man behind animals in movies like Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Call of the Wild. Even though the VFX team would swap out Terry in post, they put him in full costume so he could get into character, complete with a birthday hat, sweater, and a face smeared in fake blood. To mimic a chimp's perspective, the crew built the Gordy's home set 30% larger than normal, helping Terry give as natural a performance as possible so the final scene would feel more lifelike. Turning Terry into a chimp was still a challenge. That translation is never straightforward. After all, a human's face behaves very differently than a chimp's. Apes have heavier brows that move less, for one, and the muzzle on a chimp is more dexterous, with lips that have a greater range of motion. The animators had to integrate these facial differences while preserving the core of Terry's performance, especially in the terrifying climax of the sequence, when Gordy gets super close to the camera. Because audiences would see him so close up, blown up on an IMAX screen, the face had to be extremely detailed and photorealistic. The VFX team then simulated all the cloth, fur, and blood, which helped ground the violence and further sell the horror. To show the horrifying aftermath of the attack, prosthetics artist Vincent Van Dyke designed this makeup for the character of Mary Jo, Jupe's co-star on Gordy's home. The star of the makeup is a set of out-of-the-mouth dentures, created from a dental cast of actress Sophia Cotto. These kinds of dentures lock into the actor's actual teeth while rolling over the outside of their lips, compressing the soft tissue there and giving the illusion that there are no lips left after the attack. Vincent sculpted the rest of the makeup around the dentures, designing the prosthetic skin to blend seamlessly onto the acrylic gums. Halloween Ends turned out to be one of the most violent installments of the slasher franchise. To make sure all this bloodshed only looked violent, the film required heavy stunt coordination and planning. For the scene where Michael's killing protege jumps off a radio tower, stunt coordinators Corey DeMeyers and Kevin Scott split it up into 2 parts. First, they put actor Rohan Campbell on a line and dropped him onto the awning. Then Corey stepped in as a stunt performer to finish the second part, without wires or pads.
Action!
Corey also doubled as the new killer in this scene where he kills his mom. A gory sequence that didn't make the final cut of the movie. The scene involved a masked Corey stabbing through a pillow stuffed with feathers, a blood bag in the middle, and a piece of plywood in the back to provide an additional layer of safety. The team scored the pillows, making it easier for the dulled metal prop knife to break through and puncture the blood bag. The result was as intense as intended. Bloody feathers everywhere. Other grisly scenes involved wire gags, like when Michael kills Nurse Deb, leaving her hanging on the wall. The team hung super thin steel cable, known as magician's wire, to 2 eye bolts in the wall hidden behind the painting. The wire went through 2 tiny holes in the painting and hooked up to a C harness that the actress was wearing under her wardrobe. Using such a small wire in that dimly lit room made it relatively easy for VFX to clean up the shot in post. The final fights required weeks of rehearsal and pre-visualization. And with the amount of fake blood needed to sell the scenes, the team often needed to get everything right within the first few takes to minimize resetting time.
So it should be blood pumping from tubes.
Copy blood pumping.
Ultimately, Jamie Lee Curtis's stunt double only did 2 shots in this final sequence, with Jamie herself handling 98% of her own stunts. It was her idea for Michael to smash Laurie's head through this prop glass cabinet, made out of breakable balsa wood and candied glass.
3, 2, 1, go!
For Prey, a prequel set 300 years before the Predator movies, the iconic Predator had to look more like a horror character, with a less human face. This version of the creature, dubbed the Feral Predator, got a new suit and 2 fearsome hero heads, all created by Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr., the duo behind the creature effects for the previous movies. The 27 tiny servos in the animatronic underskull could be operated via radio control by 3 to 4 off-screen puppeteers. All these motors gave the creature more movement in its mandibles than audience had seen in previous Predators, and went a long way toward creating the bestial look the team was going for. Once treated with slime and water spray, the hero head weighed about 13 pounds, while the rubber suit weighed about 60 after adding the wet elements. Since the 6'8" tall Dane weighed 240 pounds, that meant he was moving over 300 pounds around on set. This might help his character look massively imposing on screen, but it made his job that much more physically demanding. The VFX house MPC then tied everything together, creating the CG version of the Predator based off the practical suit and head. Finishing touches included the metallic scars, fluorescent green blood tracking, and cloaking and power glitching effects. These enhancements were designed to uphold the practical feel of the classic suit, while breathing further life into the Predator. This meant adding subsurface light scattering to the mouth, articulating the facial musculature, and sometimes subtractive effects, like removing the seams of the suit and making the Predator's hand appear leaner and more muscled. The extraterrestrial wasn't the only terrifying hunter in the film. MPC's artists created a small zoo of hair-raising wildlife species, all predators in their own right. Their work included a grizzly bear attack scene, filmed with a guy in a bear suit to provide interaction on set. They also created a CG mountain lion, while the wolf scene intercut between an actual canine performer and a CG animal. Other wildlife came to practically, like this animatronic snake.
But I saw her die.
Director James Wan wanted to film Malignant with a creepy roving camera that would follow the protagonist's movements from the ceiling, crossing over from room to room. He accomplished this with the spider cam. Wan compared this to a sky camera that can just fly everywhere. Suspended on a cable system, the spider cam can move both vertically and horizontally. That makes it perfect for filming sporting events. And this torturous sequence from Malignant, where we track Madison from room to room and up the stairs as she grows increasingly panicked. Wan's team also designed the set to resemble a dollhouse without ceilings. That way the camera and the viewer could stalk Madison in an extended overhead tracking shot, which reflects her building sense of paranoia.
There's nobody there. There's nobody there.
He looks up and...
Ghostbusters Afterlife used complex animatronics to recreate the iconic terror dog from the original movie. Whereas full CGI creatures often appear weightless, this practical approach made the terror dog look more substantial and imposing on screen. Building this massive animatronic was a long, complex process, and it all began with this maquette. The model helped capture the dog's design and provide a reference for the VFX team for sequences where it would have to be CGI. From there, the team used a mock head to test how the dog's colors would look in different lighting, conducted a movement test with a mini 2D printout hooked up to cables, tubing, and a popsicle stick, sculpted the dog true to size out of 600 pounds of clay, and cast that mold in foam latex to create the actual animatronic. All in all, with its complex mechanics, fiberglass shell, acrylic teeth, and resin horns and nails, the terror dog weighed in at a whopping 450 pounds. To make sure the puppet was manageable on set, the team never created its back half, leaving CGI to fill in the rest for full body shots. Instead, they attached its top half to a weighted cart, allowing crew members to move the heavy dog around, including placing it on the hood of a car and using CG for the rest. A dog this intimidating had to have a big chomper. That's partly why its face alone contained 21 servo motors, capable of displacing a lot of skin whenever the dog moved its mouth. A single mouth movement could take a team of 3 puppeteers performing it via radio control. Placement of the jaw's pivot point was also crucial to get right, so the dog could snarl and roar in a way that looked believable. A puppeteer used a separate terror dog leg for this shot where the creature stomps on Paul Rudd's car. He moved the leg by grabbing onto a metal armature inside, but his arm couldn't reach the actual foot. So the team incorporated a series of cables to create lifelike ankle and toe movements, showing the foot flexing and adjusting as the dog's weight comes down on the car. How do you turn a tropical destination into a nightmarescape? By building an oppressive rock wall to cut the characters off from the outside world. To make the wide open coast in Old start to feel like a prison, M. Night Shyamalan turned to production designer Naaman Marshall. Naaman took measurements and photographs of the filming site at Playa El Valle, using an existing rock wall as their starting point. He then built an expanded rock wall model and blended it into the natural structure using scaffolding, foam, plaster, paint, and sand. At one point, a hurricane washed away a 150-foot section of the set, tearing cables away from the support scaffolding. But the crew managed to complete the 32-foot tall, 900-foot wide barrier in time for filming. Digital effects expanded the wall even more dramatically in post, using photographs of the natural rock to replicate its surface textures. This attention to detail is what made the steep, weighty wall so realistic, making an otherwise idyllic setting feel confined and sinister. As Naaman put it, the beach becomes the villain.